Alrighty, so we are here reacting to what was, in any normal circumstance, a car crash interview by Kamala Harris. Tim Walz was there as her emotional support animal, but he really didn't have any answers for anything. He kind of sat there silently. The entire setup of the interview was bizarre. Dana Bash did a horrifyingly bad job. She would ask a kind of tough question only to never follow it up, just abandon the thread. So there was no actual pushback when Kamala Harris or Tim Walz lied. Before we go any further, I want to remind you that we do have a special deal going on over at Daily Wire. We have a Labor Day deal. You get 40% off right now at our Labor Day sale. All you have to do is head on over to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use promo code LABOR40 at checkout to get that special deal. Again, we're bringing you updates all throughout the election cycle. We can only do that because of your membership, so we really appreciate it. Okay, now back to the interview. There were a bunch of F-ups here by Kamala Harris that are going to be used in campaign ads. And that really is the measure of the interview, because as an interview, it was really boring. Not a lot happened, actually, during the interview. She word saladed a lot. She filibustered a lot. There was a lot of just mush mouth coming out of Kamala Harris. She looked kind of awkward. Her mannerisms, she looked like she was not comfortable being there. Tim Walz looked uncomfortable being there. She was clearly very nervous. She doesn't want to be in front of a camera answering actual questions. The very first question was, what are you going to do day one? And she didn't have an answer for that. She filibustered that answer. That's like the number one question every presidential candidate gets. How did she not have an answer for that? But that's not what's going to damage her. There are a couple of answers here that actually are going to damage her. The first answer that is going to be a real problem for her is she was asked about her constantly changing and vacillating positions. And they're all over the place. They're constantly changing, constantly vacillating. So she was specifically asked about fracking. And she said, well, I was against fracking, but then I changed my position in 2020. Now, remember, her campaign actually ended in 2019. It didn't make it to 2020. She changed her position because it wasn't Joe Biden's position when she was running for vice president. So she says, in 2019, I was against fracking. Then in 2020, I was pro-fracking. And believe you me, right now, I am definitely pro-fracking. And you can believe me because I'm saying so, because I changed then, but I won't change again. Bad answer, especially because she was asked by Dana Bash, why do you change your positions? Like, do you have any explanation for why these positions changed? And not only that, Dana Bash went further. Dana Bash, being a very kind and generous interviewer, which is to say, being in the pocket of the Harris-Walz campaign, she actually offered her multiple choice options. So she actually said to her, did you change your positions because you maybe evolved, or maybe because you learned new information? And Kamala Harris then completely avoided either of those answers, both of which are totally plausible on our multiple choice exam to be president of the United States. And instead, she went with, I haven't changed any of my values. That line is going to be at the center of a lot of attack ads from the Trump campaign because she hasn't changed her values. She has not. The Green New Deal is a radical piece of legislation. The Inflation Reduction Act is a radical piece of legislation. She was for open borders. She tried to bring herself off as a border hawk. And when she was asked about the open borders policy of the Biden administration for the first 3.5 years, she started talking about Donald Trump and how she was a prosecutor at one point. That dog is not going to hunt if somebody actually asks her an aggressive line of questioning. The question will be whether she does an interview ever again after this one. The other answer that I think is really going to harm her is her answer on Joe Biden. So Dana Bash said, you were a big defender of Joe Biden. You said he was healthy. You said everything was fine, hunky-dory, better than great. He was awesome. Do you have any regrets about that? And she doubled down. She said, no regrets about that. He's intelligent. He's smart. He's with it. He's the kind of person you want to be president. Now, this is where Dana Bash's sycophancy is a sin. This is where her being a kiss ass is a real sin. She should have said back to Kamala Harris, okay, you say that he's smart and he's healthy and he's with it. So why did he drop out? Do you want him to get back in? Do you think that he should get back in? Like, why shouldn't he? Did you win any primary votes? That's where she should have pressed. And presumably Donald Trump will have to press her on that if given the opportunity during the debate on September 10th. But Dana Bash, really let her off the hook on that one. Again, her lying to the American people for years about the health status of Joe Biden is really a major issue that has not been tapped yet. Because most Americans think that she was lying and that everyone was lying. But we didn't get a lot of talk about that. We got a lot of talk about how she was serving out bacon to her little nieces or something when she got the news from Joe Biden. So that answer is not going to be particularly helpful to her. The rest of it was basically just a mashup of platitudes and nonsense and her talking about the significance of time. She actually did that again. One of her favorite crutches is when we talk about the significance of, that is her stalling for time. as her crutch. She doesn't have anything to say, so she starts talking about the significance of the thing that she knows nothing about. So she's asked about climate change, and she'll start talking about the significance of climate change. Well, that wasn't the question. The question is, what's your policy? Or she's asked, first of all, I don't understand how there are no questions about her tax policy. She's literally proposing a 25% tax on unrealized capital gains, which is insane. How is there no question? I mean, Dana Bash betrayed her profession tonight. She really did. Horrifyingly bad job. Now, Tim Walz, again, he was just kind of there as backup, I guess. It was super weird. He sat there silently for nearly the entire interview. He was brought in near the end to talk about how proud he was of his son. That's fine. He was asked some questions about the fact that he has lied about his DUI back in 1995, about his military service, about his wife's IVF, that he's lied about all of these things. And he said something about how, well, you know, you mess up when you talk a lot. He should have just said, listen, if I make mistakes, I try to correct them, which is not true, by the way. He certainly does not. He said something about how he screwed up the grammar, but people will give him... Is any of this going to really ding Tim Walz in a serious way? I seriously doubt it. Also, the VP candidate just doesn't matter all that much. Suffice it to say his answers were not brilliant. I don't think they did him any sort of serious damage. But it was weird to have him there. Like, he shouldn't have been there at all. And it made Kamala Harris look a little bit minor league. And why is she doing that? Now, one point I will hand to Kamala Harris. Her campaign is smart enough to recognize that she should not steer into the racial identitarianism. She was asked twice racially identitarian questions by Dana Bash. She was asked about Donald Trump and his talk about whether she was truly black or not, and she completely ignored that question. She just said, he does that all the time. Next question. That is a smart answer. It is. It's an actual smart answer by Kamala Harris. Then later on, she was asked about this ridiculous photograph that for some reason Democrats love. I mean, I get why, because she looks like an authoritarian dictator in it. I mean, she's like up against a white backdrop or against a lit backdrop, and there's a little girl who's profiled from behind, gazing glowingly up and worshipfully up at Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris is asked about first woman, first black woman, all this kind of stuff. And she gives I'm just here to be the good president. That's a good answer. That is a good answer. But those were the sole bright spots. The rest of it was stargle-bargle. It was just nonsense. The thing is that our standards have been set so unbelievably low in presidential politics that if she didn't physically crap herself in the middle of the interview, it was a massive improvement over Joe Biden. And, you know, her kind of wandering all over the landscape in search of an idea, not a great shock. Of course, we've been here before. So, like on a scale of 1 to 10, was this like a true car crash? Again, in any normal circumstance, it's a car crash. Is this a true car crash for Kamala? Like, is it going to do serious damage to her campaign? No. Is it going to grow her audience? Is it going to make people feel super comfortable with her? Also no. So did it move the ball forward for her? Well, I mean, I suppose that it quieted the criticism that she doesn't take questions or something for like a moment. But that's not going to go away. If this is the only interview that she does from now until the debate, everyone is going to go right back to, you booked a softball interview in which you were interviewed for like 7 seconds by Dana Bash. And then you went back hiding on the campaign trail. So is it going to quiet those critiques? I think not. Do I think this actually changed much? I don't. Do I think it exposes why they will not let her in front of cameras for love or money if they can help it without a teleprompter? Absolutely. Kamala Harris is truly bad at this. Reminder, we bring you these updates all throughout the campaign. Once again, you're going to want to go over to dailywire.com/subscribe, become a member, help us, help you. Use code LABOR40 and get 40% off for your Labor Day sale this weekend. Go check it out right now, dailywire.com/subscribe. We'll be back here tomorrow with the entire recap of everything in detail, plus all of the controversy surrounding Donald Trump and abortion. He opened a bit of a can of worms today. We'll get into that tomorrow. We'll see you then.